Well, and that's would like to get started. Welcome to tonight's special council meeting. It is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. Fiscal officer will take the roll. Here. 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 Okay, this is a special council meeting. The only topic that can be discussed is stormwater control at the Central Basin and the Manabrook sites. The letter that the residents received said we would do the Central Detention Basin at 6:30. And we have out there Jeff Greenleaf. Jeff lives right here where you can see the cursor on that screen over there. He lives in 5249 Chillicothe. This is the Central Retention Basin. For those of you in the audience or watching, this is Chillicothe Road. You're right now sitting here in the Village Hall. That's our salt dome there. Water comes from this area. This is from Kensington Green and flows this way, which is right behind us. This Central Retention Basin goes around from here to here to here to here to here. It's designed to catch that water, hold it, and then slowly release it under Chillicothe Road to Chagrin Lakes. And this gives you the idea of this is it. These are contour lines showing it. The best thing I could tell you is the Fellowship Church, which is right down the road, has something like this in their front yard. It's just a green, grassy area with the banks around the sides, designed to catch water. Okay.
Can I ask a question? How is that functioning now?
It's not. We're going to be putting it in.
That's all woods, correct, right now?
Yeah, mainly scrub, some wooded trees.
Where is it in relationship to the existing work that was done a year or two ago?
It's talking about.
Yeah,
Right next
right over
Right next to
here,
it.
yeah.
Take a look at the right screen.
Okay. So that where you have your cursor is that the existing that was redone a few years ago?
Correct.
Is that remaining untouched in this project?
We changed a little bit down here.
Down which one? am I
About
looking
right in here.
That's my screen.
at? So at the end of it,
Yeah.
where it goes.
Yeah, a few feet in here.
And how is that functioning now?
Okay. There's 4 pools in there to catch water.
So when you're adding a retention pond, not a sediment pond, an actual retention pond. How deep is that retention pond?
I think it's gonna be about 6 feet deep.
And how are you getting the 6 feet? Are you mounding to get the 6 feet to hold the water? And are you outletting out of the bottom of the retention pond?
It's gonna outlet right through here at the culvert that runs underneath Chillicothe Road, right next door to Dr. Rosenthal's office.
But when you create the retention pond up top there, how are you getting the water out of there on a slow basis? And will it ever empty completely over time and be back to grass?
Yes, yeah, designed for.
That's the design of the retention pond.
Yes, yeah.
And what is the elevation that you have to work with to get under that road to make that work?
I'll have to wait till Eric gets on. He'll be on at 7 to tell you what it will be. I don't know exactly. I don't know if these are like 1 foot contour lines or what they are. So I'd rather not say.
So you don't know the exact height of that berm around the outside?
No, but I'd say,
But most of them that I've seen is federated that have a berm over a couple of feet, you're talking 6 feet. But you've got to be able to get out of the bottom of that 6 feet, so that 6 feet has to be at a level that is gonna allow you to drain across the street, correct?
yes.
And to the mayor's point, a lot of the technical details can be addressed by the engineer. All those, they're not unknowns, but, the engineer had a other appointment, so he'll be joining us late, but he'll be able to.
It's just a quick question, I'm sure they calculated it, I was just interested in what that elevation was and what would it look like from the street. That is actually a fully treed area currently, correct?
As the engineer has stated, we did the most significant detailed work on the preliminaries and looking at the tree removal. Most of it is scrub. And
Scrub that they'll be clear cutting, not trees? Okay.
there are trees, but the scrub far outweighs the amount of trees.
How far back on this picture in that tree section, I don't have a concept of how big that pond is. how far back might it come here? Like of those larger trees that we're seeing there, how many of those are gonna be cut out? Does it go pretty much back to the cemetery entrance?
This is the other side of the road.
Yeah, probably back. to-
About to that, right where that 306 sign is.
Comes almost back to the gentleman's house. This is his property line right here.
What property line?
This would be, this line here,
Where is his property line
Right
on here? On this map?
I can't show you on there, but I can show you on this one on the right.
Yeah,
There's a property line right there.
Okay.
Shows our property. It goes right here.
I'm just trying to get a concept, it's probably irrelevant to be honest with you, but I was just trying to get a concept of the.
And Mayor, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you see, here's the house that
Right.
is the house adjacent. This area back here, he currently has as a garden. Some of the garden is actually encroaching on village property. But if you're looking at a swag at the property line, you're probably talking about a property line right here.
So you're gonna literally clear cut from that, within what, 10 feet of that property line? Back north, all the way to that swale that you developed a few years ago. Is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
I would say yes, and I also see our engineer has been able to join us.
okay. Because that to me does not look like scrub, that looks like trees to me. I'm a little confused with that terminology, but we'll go forward.
Okay, let me see if we can get that.
Yeah, and that's just trying to get a concept of, what the trees, because I haven't even looked at them. I don't know if they're mature trees or scrub might be the right word for all I know. I haven't looked at it. I'm just curious because I didn't know where that project was.
How current is that photo? Because that's not scrub to me.
That's a Google map, so I'm not sure what that age is on that.
Okay.
Okay. Jeff Greenwood, would you like to speak? Because as you mentioned, your house is about right here. I don't know if you can see that. He's at 5249 Chillicothe. As I said, he's got a garden area there. So Jeff, if you'd like to speak, make sure you're unmuted. Chief, can you tell if he's trying to speak?
I got nothing up here. I'm on YouTube.
Okay.
You have to raise your volume.
Jeff, can you hear me? It's not- Okay.
Taking a break.
All right, Greg, I'm gonna have you speak in a couple of minutes. We're talking about the central retention basin. People were asking how deep it's going to be, and what, basically, if we stood where we stand outside Village Hall, how high is Chillicothe above the roadway? We'll start with a couple questions, okay?
Let me pull that up on my computer here.
Okay. While we're pausing, there is a sign-out sheet. If you haven't signed it, please do so.
This is all lost. This is people that. That's the basis itself. I was there. But here was most of my next door.
No, I'm ready if you're ready for me to go. I just needed to get that file pulled up on my computer because the one that you showing on the big screen was real small for me.
Okay.
So your question was, if you're standing on Chillicothe, how, if I understood right, how tall there will be some mounding along Chillicothe, and then there will be a low area where the water is held behind that mountain. So the Chillicothe Road is at right around elevation 1192 maybe, and the top of the mound is right around 1190. So the top of the mound that runs parallel to Chillicothe Road is real close to the roadway surface of Chillicothe Road. If anything, it's a little bit below. From the top of the mound to the bottom of that dry basin is about 6 feet. So that slope going down on the basin side of the mound is about 6 feet.
So really, there's not much change with the ditch line that we presently have right in the village hall.
No, we're not changing the ditch line that's currently there. That ditch is a functional drainage ditch, and we don't want to block it off. We want it to continue to flow as it is now.
I have a better picture up, I think, on the right screen now.
So the look of that will be very similar to Wembley, what's in front of Wembley and what's in front of the churches. They should look very similar.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comparison.
In the 6 foot depth of that, you're able to get that completely drained at that 6 foot, and then you're gonna have to go downhill from there to get under the road to get into the creek.
Correct. The bottom of that basin sits.
That's the original one.
The bottom of that basin sits at around 1184, and the flow line of that culvert that goes underneath the road now is 1183. So there's a 1 foot fall from the middle of that basin to the existing culvert.
Yet in the purpose of this retention pond was that the original project that you didn't get all the water, and you still had flooding, correct?
Yes.
And does this overcompensate for any potential, I mean, you have plenty of flooding or retention now to catch all of that, to eliminate that 100%?
Correct.
Nice.
That initial stream restoration project was a habitat biological type of project. I was involved in the design of that. And it provides a marginal amount of water retention just by the fact that it widens out the floodplain a little bit on either side of that stream. But it was never meant to be a flood water storage project. This is. The size of this basin is calculated to hold a 100-year recurrent rain event.
This isn't so much right.
Questions about the central retention basin?
Mayor,
Professor,
I believe the drawing that we have up there right now is the old version. Eric and his firm have made a change, shifting the pond itself from 13 feet from my property line to 50 feet, which is one of the reasons why I'm here. Part of my issue.
That actually is the new version.
Yeah, we got a different,
Eric, you can't see, there's a different video on the opposite side of the village hall here. So it's the old drawing on one side, the new drawing on the other side.
Okay, the drawing is shown on the screen that he's sharing with me via Zoom is the new version where the. Actually clear.
this was just to give an idea where it was.
Yeah. Guess you're asking for questions there. One of the reasons why I reached out to Mayor Coons and Eric and folks here is that I own the property that's being affected the most. Part of the reason why we bought that property was it was back from the road. Beautiful. It's not a lot of scrub. There's plenty of trees there. I can attest to it. I've lived there for almost 8 years. That blocks the view of Chillicothe Road. The original drawing, which we just had out there, was probably going to eliminate about 95% of it. Eric and his firm, their new drawing there, probably moves that back. It's probably only 90% now, but he's also added in the berm. I call it berm or a high area that should block some of it. But my concern is right against Chillicothe Road. We're wiping out an area where we can hold trees. I've offered to work with the village here, and I proposed a crescent shape that would go a little higher, probably cost a little bit more money. And I don't know that we fully, or I haven't heard that we fully evaluated that option. So I'd like to see if there were some other proposals, Eric, that you and your firm drew up, and maybe you could show those.
This was actually our best case scenario, that we were able to push the bases much farther away from the property line. If we start going further to the east, we give ourselves another, give or take 15 feet from Chillicothe Road, like make it more of a crescent shape and take off that southwest corner of the pond and add onto it farther to the east. Number one, it started impinging on existing upland wetlands, which we would need extensive permitting for. And number two, it increased the overall project by about 34%. It was just deemed that it wasn't worth it to gain another 20 feet away from Chillicothe.
So there's maybe a cost benefit. I guess my counter to that, and I've shared it with you as well, is being the owner of the property, if my property depreciates in value because I've reduced the number of potential buyers when I go to sell and retire, which I will all do at some point, then the money that you don't spend on this project comes directly out of my pocket. And I think you would agree that that's probably not the best solution for me. And that's where I was hoping we could come to a meeting of the minds about how we could attack this problem, still get the retention pond to solve the 100-year flood issue, but also not damage my property value, because having just turned 59, I don't have that many years in the market in order to recover if I lose $50,000 or $100,000 of property value.
The property value issue is always a tough one, because if the village didn't own this parcel that we're planning to put the retention basin on, or if they had sold the parcel like we talked about years ago, very likely there could be a developer that bought it and put 3 or 4 houses on there and figured out the whole thing. You'd have the same argument. If your immediate neighbor painted his house a bright pink, you could make a very strong argument that hurt. But on property that you don't own, on adjacent properties, an individual really has very little, I guess, legal recourse to say what a neighbor can and can't do with their property. I would count to say that the stormwater water improvement that we're gonna be constructing here is a really passive use of that parcel. We've not building barns over there for cold storage, which are actually a much needed improvement, for the village. We're not increasing parking, the lighting or anything, to that effect. It's gonna be a dry basin that's green and mowed. It's a pretty passive thing. I do feel for you, but I personally ran into the same issue. The lot next to my house was cleared, and all of a sudden my view changed pretty drastically, and there was nothing I could do about that. I didn't own the property.
Thanks, Eric. You and I talked about that development, and I appreciate our conversations we've had. I think you've been collaborative as best you can, although I know your job is to complete this as cheaply, as inexpensively as possible. But your argument about a subdivision going there, if you're struggling to find a place to put a 100-year retention pond, there's no way you could ever put 3-4 houses on that land and still find a 100-year retention pond. So I don't think that argument holds water. I did like your pink house argument. And yeah, I think that there are those instances around the U.S. where billboards are put up or I guess zoned to be put up. You can't fight that. But if it's something that is not zoned currently, I think that that's why we want to talk about and debate this here at the village meeting. You know, what can we do to push that, even if it does cost $15,000, $20,000 more? There's over 500 dwellings.
We're talking around $160,000 more, not 15 or 20. What we're doing right now costs about $40,000 more than what we had initially proposed. Cutting farther back into that hillside to the east, you can see the grade that comes down. That's a pretty steep cut for the basin on the east side. The further we push it to the east, the deeper the hole becomes, and the more dirt that needs to be hauled out of there. That's what's a really big driving factor for cost. As far as the screening goes, simply increasing the distance between the edge of our work area and the property line of about 13 feet to 50 feet is going to allow us a tremendous potential for just greenery, landscape screening to be put along the south end of that pond, which I think will be pretty effective at maintaining your not being able to clearly see Chillicothe from the house.
So there's another potential, or there's another plan that maybe we're not seeing here that has been laid out in terms of landscape architecture and maybe more berms to hide that retention pond, and most importantly, hide the traffic. You know, I think we've all seen the Coonley trucks coming down 306 every morning, every evening, returning back, as well as many others. And the traffic, this is a state road. So when we take away these trees, it opens things up to me. And actually, I have a neighbor that is not here tonight, a wonderful set of neighbors, and they are directly affected by this as well.
So you were basically asking, this is not Eric's baby, but this would be the village's baby, to screen this along the north side of your property, where I'm kind of wiggling this line back and forth.
Yes, sir. That would be a request, and then just, you know, Eric made an adaptation. I appreciate it. It sounds like a 2-foot berm that would maybe extend from my own berm, you know, the raised area in front of my property, going down towards Village Hall. If we could do something along that berm, maybe with some evergreens or greenery that blocks the direct view of traffic.
Normally, what we would do in a situation like this is do the construction and then see what is needed. But I think it's obvious to most people that something would be nice along here. And if this were a factory going in there, we would still tell the factory that, hey, you're gonna have to screen the back, your wall of your factory, so that the neighbors don't see it. And I think this is something that we would probably do, just, I mean, it'd just be a normal, decent behavior by the village to screen this off. Now, Eric, did I speak out of turn?
No, when council agreed, to let us spend some more design money, to shape this thing, to make it more palatable for, the adjacent properties, the neighbors, and to increase the excavation quantity by shortening that basin up north to south, so lengthening it out a little east to west, and increasing up to the east. They're of course allowing us to budget more money for excavation. I thought that was a pretty fair consensus. We also talked about, after the thing was constructed, that we now have a 50-foot buffer, between the property line and the area that we'll be disturbing with the basin. And that'll allow for a really healthy and substantial stand of landscape screening. And the 2 or 3 times I brought it up to council, everyone on council seemed very agreeable to additional landscaping after the construction is complete for the excavation. So that is something that is on council's radar, and it is something that they ought to be planning.
If I may, make a comment. Councilman Canton, thank you all for being here tonight. Really appreciate it. When I was living in Warren, we bought a home, dead end, landlocked area right to the west of us. They put a putt-putt and a batting cage next door to us. I know exactly where you're at, okay? So I assure you that this councilman, be it your property or Vanderbrook, will be pushing hard for landscape, okay? In my opinion, our number one challenge in South Russell seems to be stormwater runoff. And it's that delicate balance, there are people, citizens, neighbors, that come here and on the east side of 306, there's a home that the water flows through the backyard or the back door out the front door. They're demanding we do something about it. There's people on the southwest side. It's demanding we do something, but then again, we want to comment on the fact that whatever we do, it may affect someone else. So there's this constant balancing act. And that's what good government's all about. So I know I hear you.
And this is Ruth Kavanaugh. Can you hear me?
Dr. Ruth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I joined late, and I'm not sure what the gentleman's name is that lives just to the south of the proposed basin. Can someone tell me, please?
It's Jeff Green.
Hi, Jeff. I thought it was Greenleaf. I just wasn't sure. So
Hi, Ruth.
I was put back on, I was elected to council again, this past fall, and I know nobody wants to go back in time, but I have to give credit where credit is due. I was on council from 1995 till 2000, and that's when this particular property was acquired. The village did not own it, and I can't give you the exact year, maybe 1998, but we purchased it. For this, not this particular purpose, but for a purpose that if something came up, it would be a buffer to council. I realize what it's like to live on a busy road, because in the early years of the 2000s, I lived on Route 44. It was miserable. You're on Route 306. I understand that. We're doing the very best we can as a group of 7 or 8 people with the engineer to make this palatable and to solve some problems. So I hope you hear us. I don't remember what year your house was built. Maybe right around 2000, Jeff?
1999, so great memory.
Okay. So everything happened kind of fast there. South Russell acquired the property. Those 2 houses were built in the back. we don't want miserable neighbors, but we have to come to some agreement. We don't want you losing value, and we are hearing you, that anybody would want a buffer. It's gonna be, inactive is the wrong word, but it's going to be a pond. It's not gonna be something that causes noise or that sort of thing. And I have to credit Bill Young for having the foresight, for not only buying this property, but across the street, what became the cemetery and the little house that was torn down. So, and not only that, the corner, so this could be the southwest corner of 306 and Bell, where you see nothing but greenery. There was a proposal to put an office building there. So a lot of time, 2 decades plus, and thought has been put into all these things, and this is something that we need now. And this is my, the part of my life that I lived and when I was on council, and I hope that we can work with you and that everyone becomes more or less happy in the end.
Okay, we said that at from 6:30 to 7, we would talk about the central retention basin, and at 7 o'clock we wanted to do the Manor Brook, and we were already about 5 minutes off schedule. So I guess I'm gonna summarize that this clearing will occur in March. This area here is something I would imagine probably late September, October, we'll get together with you and figure out what's gonna be needed to screen this area. This will not be a part of the project. This, it's not, some of this was from COVID money. This money is going to come out of the village's pockets, or your taxpayer dollars, to do the screening. Any other comments on this before we take a 2-minute break and we move on to the Manor situation? Hearing none, we're going to take a 2-minute break. Here's what I need. First of all, there's restrooms downstairs. Secondly, there's a Keurig machine and water back there, and there is a sign-in sheet. Make sure you signed in, and we'll start in about 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah. We love it.
No, I'm okay. Yep.
You can stay for round two.
Do a lot more listening this time. I'll behave.
All right, here's how we're gonna go.
Turn that on. Push and hold the bottom.
It was 6 minutes ago. Six. Right, we're on. Okay. All right. Here's what we'll do. I'm gonna talk to you for a couple minutes about where we got here. Kim Brewster from Green River Watershed Partners will talk about the grant, and Eric will be back on to talk about their construction project. What we'll do then is everyone will get a chance to speak. We ask that you give your name and address. You get 5 minutes to speak. Everyone gets a chance here. Then we go to the people out on Zoom, and we'll come back for round two if necessary. Some people watching out on YouTube does not allow for conversation, so I'm sorry. Yes.
I sent you a note that this is not what we're interested in. Does that mean anything to you guys?
So,
That we're not interested in a presentation, a marketing presentation of this project. We've already had that several times. We have questions and we're looking for answers.
okay.
And we'd like to get right to that. We already know what the project is. We already know how that stuff goes.
Okay, you have the floor first. You have 5 minutes.
So, I don't need the mic.
And we needed to make sure.
So I want to just start with the fact that we have issues that, we know this project's going forward, okay? So I think it's important to acknowledge that phase one of the project is starting and it's not with Manverse approval. We understand that, with that said, we're acknowledging that the property is owned by Whitetail and they have every right to do the project. We're not trying to stop the project. We hope to have some input and try to avoid some mistakes due to knowledge of the drainage system that we have. I do not believe that CT Consultants has that same information. We're in hopes that we can have some input to the solutions to the project and the best chance for success for all South Russell residents. So I have a list of questions for Eric regarding the drainage. The drainage, as I've expressed to you several times, to several of you council people, is a huge issue. We're being impacted by the changes that you're making. And those issues are not addressed at this point. They need to be addressed. I think the solution is there. I think we can address those, but have been ignored to this point. So we need to get those issues on the table. Now I can get right to those issues, or I have a whole list of questions for Eric that I'd just like to ask to find the progress of where this has gone, or where it started from when we first agreed to it, to where we're at now, and then the questions regarding what is current.
Would it be better if we let everybody else go so they can get their 5 minutes? Because you're gonna take more than 5
We'll
minutes.
give them our 5 minutes. He's got a couple hours.
I think the questions are the same as mine, which is what I was trying to explain. The questions are drainage and the questions are landscape.
Start.
So, Eric, are you on?
Yes, I'm listening. Fire away when you're ready.
Then Eric, I'm going to ask questions and they're just for general answers, and a lot of them should be pretty quick. When we were first brought the proposal in October, I believe it was October 2019, we had a very small design. And that's what we kind of agreed to, that was, yeah, that's a great idea. We were for that design and that help for the people east of 306. Can you briefly explain what changed on each revision since that point, and if those were shared with Manabrook and Whitetail? So in other words, how many revisions to that original 2019 plan were there?
Right, so you should have checked with what,
There are actually,
this is what we saw in 19, this is what we were presented to 22 months.
Okay, can
Can you
Eric see that?
can you get that onto the screen?
I think Eric knows that.
Well, but there's people that are watching that don't know.
So the cameras on the back. I don't know if it'll show. And so 2019, the plan was basically follow the existing drainage ditch and make some.
no, that was never the plan. The plan always included a main drainage channel that diverged from the main straight line drainage ditch and had a much higher degree of sinuosity and a wider flood plain.
Okay,
Who was that
so
for?
we're gonna go on record as stating that Manabrook was asked by Whitetail to approve that plan. And
That's
Art
what was presented
Merriman
to me.
approved going forward with that plan and allowing it to go. I'm just trying to state some
And
facts here.
that actually says CT consultants on it, so.
That's what we were told the plan was that would be started with. And I understand things can change, so this is what I'm
That
trying
was
to
what
do.
was revealed to us 22 months later.
Can you
With
put it to the
absolutely
camera?
no interaction.
Chief, is there any way to project that?
Yeah, I'll try to zoom in on it.
So Eric, the question is, and if it's a difficult one to answer because you don't have the stuff in front of you, that's fine, because it's really a general question. How many changes has been from that 2019 sketch?
There has been two substantial changes, since the initial, since the conception of the project. Actually three, if you count this last one, where we lopped off the south half. The first,
I believe you, mute yourself, please.
the first change that we made, was we extended the project farther to the northwest, to pick more of that incoming secondary channel. And the second change was made actually as a result of talking with you, Brian, about, hey, our pond doesn't have a really good pitch outlet now. Can we bump that over to include that into the project so our pond has a free draining capability into the new drainage channel, and we did that. The third substantive change was lopping off the whole southern half of the project because we didn't have permission to build it.
So from 2019, you had the one change, which was kind of the overall with the project with phase 2 included, that you shared with us in 2000 and, well, that one I think that Nancy just showed. That was 2. So that, we went from 2019 to that one. And then the final one is this one because we lopped off and went into phase 1 and phase 2. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, there were, like I said, two changes made, that were substantive, from the original sketch drawing. And those were the stream that comes into the northeast, to the northwest. We extended the project a little farther up there to gain more length than needed. And we also extended the project, if you're looking at the blue exhibit that's shown on the screen, Village Hall that I'm looking at now, to the southwest where your existing pond is.
Yes.
We pushed that project farther to the west so we touched the pond, so that it allowed for improved drainage from the pond, and that was actually upon your request.
Okay. So in those are the changes. When did, or excuse me, the question would be is, did Whitetail or Manabrook have any say, or did Whitetail or Manabrook approve the second one and approve this third one? Did you get their blessing or did you just do it?
I'm working under the direction of council.
Okay, did council get Whitetail's approval or Manabrook's approval?
We did ultimately get Whitetail's approval, the owner of the property.
We got Whitetail signed off on this project.
They're
That's, we're just trying to establish the thing. Whitetail owns the property, they have every right to do on their property what they want to do. I'm just trying to find out, we were told we would be involved in those communications. And it's clear that we were not involved in either one of those conversations. But I'm just trying to state that so everybody knows where we're at. We had no approval. Whitetail did it, they had every right to do it on that part of it. But actually in phase two, they didn't have the right to do that. They thought they did, but they did not have the right to do that. Because they didn't own all the property. But that's, we don't need to get stuck on that. And so this third phase, the last final phase, this has been okayed and approved by Whitetail, correct? And there's been no approval or desire to get Manabrook to approve.
Or inform us.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So this last plan, is this the actual plan that is going out for bid?
Yes.
Okay.
It is.
I'm sure there's a more detailed plan than this that's going out to bidding, correct?
The one, yeah, this is the one that's up on the overhead or on the screen in Village Hall, is just the overall plan, we have, basically a higher resolution, more zoomed in, grading plan. I would be happy to provide you we have a full plan set. I would be happy to email that.
Yeah, and I think that you've talked to John Hitchcock a couple times about it, and indicated you would send.
Yeah, actually, John has the whole plan set.
Okay.
I do not.
Oh, you don't? I could swear I sent that to you.
No, not received.
Okay. I might be able to do that right now.
So while you're doing that, I'll get on to my next question, just to kind of keep it moving along. So in this final plan, there are substantial changes from the one before. And the biggest one to me, well, there's two of them. The biggest one to me is a check dam has been added. Can you enlighten us on what a check dam is, what its purpose is, and is it temporary?
Check dam is, it can be made up of a bunch of different things. Well, most of the time it's made up of stone. It's a larger diameter stone, that goes across and adjacent to the main stream channel, to slow the velocity of the water as it moves through the channel. I mean, that's a check dam.
What is your check dam that you're drawing? I didn't see any detail of it. I saw a handwritten note on your diagram, and I'm trying to understand what that means.
Hang on, let me pull up.
It's in green area, in the middle it says CD.
Yeah, check dam. That's what we're using to basically throttle the water, to slow it down and to cause it to build up and utilize the floodplain, so that we can provide some storage and a much slower release of the water. Looking at my plans now.
So what are the specs for that particular check dam that you're sending out in the bids? Is it a dam that's gonna be porous to allow water through it at a slower rate? And then will.
Correct, it's porous. It is a porous structure.
And what is the elevation, top elevation of the dam, and at what point will it overflow? At what elevation?
It'll be, I believe, 2.5 feet tall. Our total cut is 3 feet. And it'll be just under that total cut.
And so if the water builds up over that 3 foot, what happens? It just overflows that dam at whatever rate.
Then it goes over the top, of the check dam and proceeds down the existing drainage channel to the south.
Why was this check dam added?
Why was it added?
Yes.
None
None of the plans previous had it, and we were told there would be no dams in this project.
The check dam was added for functionality. If you don't, you're not gonna retain much, you're not gonna retain much water, in that floodplain without a grade control structure or a check dam, to cause it to have to back up. A check dam or a grade control structure, slows the water down. So the water's coming to it at a higher velocity and leaving it at a lower velocity. And it basically impounds and stockpiles water behind it. In this case, it would be to the north.
Yeah, it's gonna allow the water, it's gonna allow the water that comes over from 306 to back up the stream in order to hold it.
Correct.
And again, this was not in any of the designs before, it was not in your one absolutely previous to this. And again, we were told that there would be no actual dams in the property, or in the project.
The check dam that we're referring to here, is, Bill, you scroll down to that second page. This is for the clearing, this is the clearing flows.
I saw no detail of the check dam.
Yeah, there is detail on the clearing flow for the check. It's a rock check dam. Scroll back up, Bill, to that first page. Where if you see the blue line that's drawn on there, the darker blue, the Sharpie marker, basically blue line, that's silt fence and sedimentation control for the clearing that needs to be put up before they clear. Just to keep silt and mud out of the existing channel. And the CEs are construction entrances, so they can get the equipment in to do the clearing. That particular check dam that's shown is a temporary structure for the clearing.
Okay, that was my next question. So it is temporary, when will it be removed in the project?
Yeah, it'll stay there for quite a long time during construction, because it's basically there as an erosion control feature. And so will the silt fence, quite honestly, although it will be much more extensive silt fencing, once we start the excavation part of the work. The figure that we're looking at on the screen is for the clearing limits.
I just need to understand what temporary means. When does temporary become gone?
Temporary becomes gone when we complete the restoration for the project and stabilize the site.
So at that point, and again, we're talking about just phase one, at that point, how do you back the water up from 306, east of 306, to keep it in the floodplain?
We use grade control structures. Let me see if I have detail on that. The detail.
Eric, while you're doing
We're
that,
using,
excuse me, Eric, let's take like a 20-second break. You do not want to know any history or anything with the 319 grant, correct? The reason I'm asking is Kim Booster from Strim River Watershed Partners.
There was one person who had a question on 319.
About what's
Yeah.
the release or less. Question on the 319, Kim, if you're still out there, question on the 319 grant, can you hand him the microphone, please? And your name?
John Hitchcock on 123 Manor So Eric, without the second half of this project or the Manor property, you're inserting a new 30-inch culvert under 306 that enters the phase one area at or about where you have the check dam.
correct.
So without,
Right where the second construction entrance is, the lower CE, that's where the culvert is.
so
That's where the new culvert will be, and the existing undersized culvert currently is.
all right, so without a check dam, that 30-inch culvert would discharge unabated into the stream as it exists now, correct?
Correct. What we're using as grade control structures and slow the water, and you'll see what I have the full plans pulled up now as a single file. But I'm sorry, I thought I emailed this to you earlier. We're using what's called a ripple detail to slow the water, and also a gravel ripple, which is 24 boulders placed in the flow line of the stream to slow the water and deposit to the mountain. And
Well,
those will be all along the stream, including where the dam is shown.
right, but the 30-inch culvert discharge has very little distance to travel before it winds up in the existing stream.
Correct,
And
correct.
so that additional water will increase the flow downstream unless it's kind of detained with
It's,
a dam or a
you
check
guys
dam.
see where you're going, and it's more of a balance. Right now, even after we replace that culvert, the majority of the water is gonna come through the big concrete elliptical culvert to the north. We'll be slowing that down much more than it is now, for a net gain in storage.
So if that does not have the desired effect, you could always install a dam and make it kind of a detention basin.
If that doesn't have the net effect, there's a couple of different things we can do. We can adjust the 24-inch boulders, to make them more effective, and we can also put, I don't want to go this route, but we could also put a restrictor plate on the upstream end of the new culvert that we'll be installing, to help throttle the water that crosses the road.
So I assume you have a contingency plan then?
We do.
So I guess I was envisioning this having to more or less be a retention basin without the added area of phase two.
Yeah, what we did is we were providing enough floodplain, excavated low floodplain, to balance the water that currently impounds to the east of 306. So we figured out the volume of that water and figured out the volume of the excavation that we would need to take out on this side by a floodplain, to make that balance out. That was the thought.
So nothing in this plan would, run counter to the terms of the 319 grant?
No. If we built a concrete structure, with a restrictor orifice across the stream, yes, that would run counter to the 319 grant project, the 319 grant rules. Using softer improvements like the ripple detail and the boulder details, we can achieve the same effect while also providing habitat and increasing the quality of the stormwater output that comes out of this thing. So we're getting a 3 for 1, and that's what the grant is about.
Okay, and I think in one of our conversations, we talked about the Mannerbrook Pond. It appears at the moment that it's not working as it was originally designed, that it is, the surface elevation of the lake is at or about the overflow elevation. So it's kind of ceased to act as any kind of retention facility.
That's it, that's how it appears.
That's not really a correct statement. It is still acting as a retention basin. It's just not functioning to its full capacity.
Okay.
So I guess the question is that additional flow in your calculations?
No, that additional flow is not in our calculations. We didn't take into account any water that was any additional retention that could be gained from the west. So if we can gain more retention to the west by making improvements to that pond so that it functions to its full potential, that'll overall be a net gain for the project. We figured direct runoff 100% from the west into this, as it goes now.
Yeah, and as it goes now, my best guess is you've got it's running at about 25, definitely less than 50% of what it was designed to do. So if we correct it, we're gonna add 50% of what we're currently sending in there. at that base?
Yeah,
Or
if
we gotta deal
those estimates
with it.
are correct, if those estimates are correct on your part, that's huge.
I'm not saying they're 100% correct, but that's my best guess, and that's why
And, well,
I
right
feel
now,
it's very important to discuss this.
that's all we can go on is a guess right now. Who came up with those old 1980, well,
Those were as-built drawings
whether
those are as-built drawings that are with the county, and Nancy from the Manbrook Board secured those from the original architect. And I have many of those to share with you, if you would be so kind as to give me the
that's
time.
super helpful.
Yeah, I've been desperately trying to get somebody to listen to me for a while, and I wanna help. That's what I've been trying
Yeah,
to do.
those drawings alone, that drawing alone was super helpful. We're going to actually add, and show that 8-inch outlet on the current plan set, just so that any excavation contract is aware of it. It likely won't be impacted or very minimally.
It will be impacted, and it will be impacted, and it needs to be dealt with. And it's exposed now, it's visible to the naked eye in the stream now, and has been for months. So.
Okay, well, Skip and I, the commissioner and I walked through that stream as best we could.
I did too, after you told me you couldn't find it, and I found it in about 10 minutes. So it's there.
Okay.
But this is why we're here, and this is why we're trying to get somebody to listen, because there's valuable information. You know, we can help make this the best project possible if you put us at the table. And unfortunately, and I've said it, and I'm just gonna be black and white and clear, you've ignored us, and Mayor Coons has ignored us. We've got information that will help you. So I'm gonna continue on. So the last time we talked in the original plan, we were very concerned about holding water in this area. We were told that water would never be in that floodplain area for more than an 8-hour period. Is that still a true statement?
8 hours might be a little light. I would say within a day that'll clear out.
Okay, and that's a good, you know, it was a question of if the project's changed, I just want to make sure we're not holding water, and that's not your intent, is to hold water.
So, you know, our intent is to let during a normal rain event, like a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year rain event, we intend to have those just flow right through the stream channel unabated.
Okay. What about a 100-year event?
Well, a 100-year event, well, that's a raw. A 100-year event is going to max us out on whatever storage we have, on the storage we gain through excavated floodplain on the west side of 306. It's also likely going to pile up on the east side of 306, just not nearly as effective as it has been before. Likely confined to the right of way and the ditch area. But to the residents on the east side of 306 that think, oh, the ditch will just be empty and, 100% free flowing. Depending on the severity of rain you get, not the case. A portion of those lawns during the big rain event by the road are still going to be watering. It's just not going to stretch all the way back and surround the houses.
So is this entire design based on a 100-year plan, 100-year flood plan, and is that not best practice?
I don't know if the culvert size is, the 30-inch culvert size is based on a 100-year event. I just don't think that the stream, whether it's the one that's there now or the twisty stream that we put in, is capable of passing that water.
Is it not best practices though when you design this to design it on a 100-year flood?
No. Standard design practice for a culvert crossing roadway is a 25-year flood.
But a flood pond and an emergency runoff, is it not based on a 100-year flood?
No.
Okay, that's different information than I've been told, so that's fine, I'm just trying to clarify.
That's what we shoot for. If we can capture a 100-year flood, that's certainly what we shoot for. May not be feasible and likely isn't feasible in those situations. If new construction, then yes, we shoot for a 100-year storm event. This is working with a stream channel that's already there. We're working with the constraints of one single piece of property. There's a whole bunch that hurt us there. If we increase the capacity of the ditch line that's on the phase 1 portion of this project, it would likely do much good because everything south of there doesn't have capacity to handle it either. So we're a little bit limited with the environment that we're working in.
So what is this entire project based on? So you're adding this floodplain area to alleviate 306, which is a good start. We're not doing anything to change south downstream. What is south downstream capable of handling? A 20-year flood, a 5-year flood?
More than a 50.
More than a
Less
50.
than 100.
What is your
More than 50, less than 100.
What is your plan based on phase 1?
What is my plan based on?
Is it based on a 50-year, your calculations that you did based on the information you had?
We actually based the total amount of storage provided in the floodplain excavation to balance out the amount of water that currently piles up during our biggest storms on the east side of 306. It wasn't based on a storm recurrence event. It was strictly volume.
So we could have a 20-year storm, a 25-year storm that overruns this system. We don't know that?
Not likely.
Okay. A 50-year storm?
A 25-year event isn't what's causing the big water to pile up on the east side of Chillicothe property.
Okay. A 50-year event?
It was, yeah.
More than or less than?
It's more than a 50-year event when we have the houses that on the east side of Chillicothe that are flooding. We've had rain events, just as an aside, we've had rain events occur in the village in the past 10 years that are over the 100-year recurrence cycle. And I
Well, so close.
that's really difficult to put a number on.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next one. So I provided you with some as-built drawings for the sediment/retention pond that's west of your project right there. And it shows, and I think you looked at these, it shows an emergency runoff area, and it clearly states in there not to be disturbed. And this area is in the middle of your project. What does not to be disturbed mean, and why was it noted?
That's a good question. It was likely noted because that pond was built as a stormwater retention feature and also a combo sedimentation pond during construction of the condos in Annabrook, the cluster homes. It was overdug and allowed to silt in to catch the sediment before it went into the drainage channel. The emergency overflow of the pond is direct at the drainage channel, but it was not dug all the way to the drainage channel, likely to avoid wetland disruption.
It was designed to if that pond overflowed, it had a runoff area, and then it had an unimpeded path to the creek. Is that correct? And that's normal.
Yeah.
That's normal for emergency runoff.
Yeah, that's not normal for emergency runoff. A refined runoff channel from the pond connected directly to the creek, the ditch, would be a much more standard approach. The developer likely ran into a wetland permitting issue and chose, I'm only gonna run it so far until I get to that delineated wetland, and then it's just gotta get there on its own. But there's enough fall that it will. That's likely why the not to be disturbed note is on there, to avoid, wetland disturbance at the time of construction.
Okay, so we've determined that we have an emergency runoff for the sediment / retention pond that is west of your project. And that pond filters all the rain-off water from the entire Manor Brook properties and some of Whitetail properties that are on the north side of Manor Brook.
That's correct.
And so that emergency runoff is for that. Is it normal or possible to have the same designated area for two different watersheds emergency runoff? That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me.
If they're both flowing to the same pond, then yes, the pond should have one emergency overflow.
But they're not flowing. So you've got an emergency watershed issue coming from the east side of 306 that you're now going to use the same area that we have from the west side as the same emergency floodplain, whatever you want to call it.
So I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Yeah, let me pull that up here. That pond sits significantly higher than any maximum water. The elevation of the pond now is, there we go, is 1175.5 as surveyed. The top end of the stormwater retention is around 1173.5 to 1174. So the water surface elevation of that pond at 100% full is 1175.5. It's over a foot above what we're capable of holding if that floodplain completely backs up. So it will still be able to discharge into the floodplain, regardless if the floodplain is full.
Is an emergency runoff floodplain, is it common practice to make sure that it is unimpeded to the original stream that it is supposed to dump to?
I would say, yeah.
So if you're going to allow our emergency overflow to dump into your floodplain, that is not unimpeded to the original stream. Is that a problem?
It provides an outflow of the pond that's above the full level of the floodplain. So
But it is not unimpeded. It is impeded with that check dam in any flow control you put in there. It's not unimpeded.
Correct. However, the maximum buildup of water is gonna be about a foot lower than the full elevation of the pond. So when the pond overflows that 8-inch standpipe that's there, which is pretty easy to do, and it has to engage the emergency overflow, it can still flow down into the floodplain, whether the floodplain is full or not.
Yeah, but it's not unimpeded, and best practices are needs to be unimpeded. Wouldn't it make more sense to make sure that gets downstream of the check valve so it's unimpeded to the creek as originally designed?
We're mashing words here. This is really thing semantic.
It is to you, but it's not to me.
The bank full elevation, when the floodplain is fully engaged and fully full, once we reach that point, it flows downstream, unimpeded. The water can only build up so high, and that maximum floodplain flooded elevation is lower than the surface of the pond. So it in effect does flow unimpeded to the stream because the stream is now wide and the pond still sits above the full stream, and can empty out into the stream. It's not gonna back up into the pond.
That's provided you don't have any backups or whatever, because you've already impeded that flow going down there. Even when it runs over the top, you have potential for it to be impeded via construction, damage, whatever, and we have no outlet, and we're going to be creating an issue, a potential issue of backing up. Part of an overflow emergency runoff is to have that runoff be unimpeded to the creek that it's designed to flow into, so that at no event, there is no possibility that you'll start backing up towards a house. And if this does not work properly and we are impeded, you back up into the house. I already have a floodplain issue up there now currently. So my question is, can we design this system? Can we change, if you're gonna redo the floodplain, emergency road floodplain that we have in there, can you design the system to change that emergency overflow? You've already designed that at the bottom end for that to come out. Can you design that to be unimpeded to the creek and not allow it to run back into the floodplain? Or not allow it to emergency runoff into the floodplain?
Yes, but it would be on the Manor property. We could skirt the south end of we could provide a new overflow to the pond, to the south of the blue area, and come in upstream of the triple culverts that go under Manor Road. And that would discharge to a point that's downstream of our floodplain.
Okay, that would be something that I would like to discuss, to take any issue of impeding our current system. Because again, as I stressed before, our system is not working as designed and is not currently putting in the water into that creek that it needs to. And if you haven't allowed for that calculation, we should look at that calculation and make sure that, we've done everything we can to minimize the effect of the people downstream. It's the effect of the people downstream that I'm concerned with. And if you can change that emergency overflow to downstream of the check valve and the overflow from the pipe and the retention pond, which I believe already needs to be unimpeded and not in the floodplain. But I believe that already is going to be in, like downstream of the check valve. But we need to verify that. So if you're willing to do that, that goes a long way in solving and correcting a major concern we had with disrupting our current drainage system.
We would not be able to do that as part of this project because that falls outside of what the 2019 grant allows us to do. That would have to be a separate project funded by the village or funded by the residents along the pond or a combination of both.
I'm not sure how you can sit here and tell me that you're going to disrupt our current drainage system without correcting it. I think this has to be addressed in your construction. We have to make this change before you impede our drain.
I'm just saying it can't be funded through the grant project.
But can you take our current system that we are semi-agreeing here that we need to fix and change and not change it? What if we have that 100-year event during your part of the construction? We got a problem. We're impeded. Our drainage system is being affected. And then it starts coming back to me.
What's being improved is what's being, right now, your emergency overflow from that pond is so cut off from the existing drainage channel that water backs up water can't get out of that pond. It ends up backing up and almost touching Manor Road to the south. Well, what our project is allowing for is for that not to happen. The pond, the fullest water surface of the pond sits over a foot above the fullest water surface of the floodplain. So there's a direct downhill discharge, which currently, in current conditions, you don't have now. So I would say that this is a net improvement for the outlet of the pond, because right now the pond doesn't really have an emergency overflow outlet. It's so choked and flat and silted that it has to wind its way through the woods to get to the creek. That will no longer be the case.
No, and we know that it is not working as designed, and that's what we're telling you, is we're in the process, we've hired somebody to work with us, we're in the process of changing that. So why we're doing this, why can't we do it the way that it's supposed to be done, that we all agree that it would be best to be unimpeded and in front of that check dam?
I disagree with the drainage pond will be able to flow unimpeded into the watershed of the creek. It'll be over a foot higher. It flows, that's downhill. It will flow unimpeded into the creek. Whether the creek is at a flood stage or not, the pond will be above it and it will have a direct connection to it. I'm struggling with where you're coming from as an unimpeded flow. We're not putting obstructions in that connection to the pond. It'll flow better than it does now by a lot.
I'm not disagreeing that it'll flow better than it is now. I've explained that it is not working correctly now, and it needs to be fixed. But if a overflow emergency runoff is to go unimpeded to the original creek that it was designed to go into, you are not doing that. You're putting it into a floodplain in a new creek. So we can kind of end it here so that we're not stuck on things, but I would really appreciate more conversation on that. And I'm not willing to accept that thing. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I've gotten several different opinions that were pretty adamant about the unimpeded and get in front of that check dam. And we can go over it and we can do calculations, and I'll give a second opinion that if everybody else agrees with it, it's not my expertise. But if you can fix it, then I don't have to go that route. So let's leave it at that so that we can move on. I think we're somewhat at least on the topic.
Okay.
Well, to add to that, I think Eric, I think I heard you say earlier that as a part of this project, that you could make those corrections to bring the Manor Pond, back to its original design, or did I miss your?
No, we can't make corrections to the pond. That's outside of the scope of the project, and it's not fundable through the grant.
I mean, we're basically talking about scratching a new swale in there to restore it to its
Correct.
original, which is
Correct.
kind of peanuts in the scheme of things.
We'd be building a new outlet swale to connect to the pond. But we can't get in there and fiddle around with the standpipe and outlet control structure that provides the stormwater retention, because that's not part of the scope of this project. I'm not saying it shouldn't be done, it absolutely should be done, like tomorrow, but.
I was just referring to
we can't address that as part of this project.
I was just referring to the emergency, the invert of that emergency overflow, not the standpipe.
Okay.
Well, the
We
standpipe
are
needs to be.
providing a much clearer emergency overflow to connect to the pond than what is there now, where we have a defined channel that connects to the creek from the edge of the pond where the emergency overflow is. So I guess I don't know what your question was.
The question was if the emergency overflow elevation is higher than it should be, Just a matter of scratching a new swale in there to restore it to where it
Oh, correct, there's plenty of fall, from the pond to the flow line of the creek. We're looking at 1175 down to 1169 maybe. So that's over 6 feet of fall, that emergency overflow channel has,
All right, we
to
don't,
get to the new stream.
we don't know exactly what that elevation is, correct?
I know the survey full elevation of the pond is 1175 and a half.
All right.
And the bottom of the stream channels in that area is like 1169 or 1170.
What did you use for the full elevation of the pond, the current level right now?
Yeah,
Okay, and that's about 1 foot to 2 foot higher than it's supposed to be.
okay, so then even better.
Yes, that's correct. That's if we fix the pipe properly. Because it does have retention capabilities, and I think that could be a big plus to the whole project if we work together to try to maximize that retention capability up there. It's the retention capability is not working as designed. You know, we get it working correctly, we are probably going to be pushing water quicker into the stream.
If we get it working correctly, it'll actually slow the water coming into the stream.
And not from what it is currently.
But not, yeah, because right now the water comes in, if we don't have that freeboard fluctuation where the water level can rise up and slowly dissipate after a rain event, that actually buffers the flow. It slows the flow into the stream channel until we get so much rain that it's at the emergency overflow elevation, and then it just flows through unabated.
Can we agree to have more conversation on this subject
Certainly.
in the check dam issue?
Certainly.
Okay, in the current overflow in the pond is not working correctly and will get corrected shortly. It runs at about 25% of what it should. So when it gets corrected, it's going to increase its flow by at least 50%. And I don't know what that means to your calculations.
And the at-full condition, yes. Yeah, the pond won't be able to fill up and flood over its banks as high as it does now, for certain.
Well, that's it. As you can see, I'm very concerned about that emergency runover. Getting it unimpeded to the creek I have been told by several people, several engineers, that that's a must-have if it can get worked into the plan.
Yeah, I think that's what we've got, that's what we're showing on the plan. We've got a channel that goes from the pond directly to the creek.
I'm finished with the drain part. I got a couple questions on the landscaping part.
We'll let somebody else speak for a few minutes.
Anybody that wants to can.
We have all the confidence in the world in Mr. Monroe.
And we can our minutes, so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, again, Eric, thanks for that. I still have a few issues that I'm hoping you'll spend some time and we'll go through, because I want to see if we can get a best practices situation in there that meets closer to what I'm looking at. I think your design is good, and I want to spend some time and go over the existing Manor Brook drainage system. I have a lot of detail, and I've spent a lot of time researching and cameraing lines and where things flow. And there's some of that will have a direct impact on phase 2, because we're somewhat undersized, and it could create an issue. And it'd be better to share that information earlier than.
Absolutely.
The time is of the essence. Okay, landscaping.
So the landscaping part of it, and I thought maybe Mark Porter would be here. I think has anybody here that on the planning commission?
No, Mark Porter is council representative.
Council, okay.
The mayor is.
So when that planning commission, meeting occurred and the easement was approved for this property, there was an add-on for landscaping. And I just kind of for the record want to ask that question, is that normal to add on landscaping after or at that meeting, or is that normally done and presented as part of it? Don't you normally want a landscaping plan, completed plan when you approve an easement like this?
I would say you would want to plan if you were talking business and buildings. Like for the central retention basin, I think you want to look at it afterward to see, hey, we need more trees here, we don't need trees here. I think in this case, they'll come with a plan in 90 days. CT will provide a landscaping plan, which will be changed and altered once we see the exact project.
What is the budget for that landscaping?
We have no budget, it will just be coming out of our funds.
Okay, and do you have
I mean,
any?
we can't have landscape screening, funded by part of the grant. Even if we wanted initially to put a landscape screening buffer in, it wouldn't be funded by the 319 grant. As a non-eligible item, so that's 100% village share no matter what. We can't have it as part of the project. It will have to be a separately funded project.
Can I ask a question on the landscaping? Is there a typical criteria or parameter you use when you do that? I mean, it's a pretty open-ended comment, right? We're gonna do landscaping. I think it would help everybody if we knew some sort of parameter or approach.
At one point, we talked about 3-inch caliber trees. Yeah, Eric, I'm sorry.
We typically use a larger diameter evergreen for landscape screening, just because it's a year-round issue. And to put, if we would right now say, before the clearing happens, put a couple of bubbles on the plan that are along the property line to the east and to the west, perhaps. We shouldn't just focus on right, Bill. We should be looking over there too. If I would put bubbles on the plan, or a landscape architect say, okay, we're going to plant some trees here. Here's the species. Here's the diameter. Without standing up in the backyards of the homes and looking across, it's awfully hard to tell where those should go and where the highest density of plantings should occur. That's why the planning commission said, okay, within 90 days, we want to see a landscape plan. That landscape plan is going to become very apparent and evident once we get the clearing done. Prior to construction of the project, the excavation phase. And that's certainly something we're going to work with the residents on, because it's your landscape screening.
And is the,
It's for you.
and Eric, is the landscape plan the planning commission requested, does it address both the east and west side of the project?
It'll address, the planning commission left it very open-ended. They said, we wanna have a landscape plan to ease the impact of the project on the residents visually that live adjacent to it. So we're gonna focus on the north, because there's a property to the north, that the house is gonna be real close to where we're gonna be clearing. Correct, right up there, Bill. So we're gonna need to concentrate our landscape density there along that western line. No, or down, okay. So we get correct in through there and also to the east. I want it to be something that's more layered than just a solid row of pine trees.
Nancy wants to clarify the south side, you didn't mention that.
We probably will not have much, we probably will not be required to put much landscaping there, because we're so far back off the road, from Nannerbrook, and I don't think the project's gonna be super visible since we weren't allowed to continue with the phase two. We're stopping well north of Nannerbrook Drive. The clearing limits are gonna be pretty far away from the road, and I think a concentrated landscape effort there is wasted.
What is the distance between Manbrook Drive and your project line on the south end? I
Oh my
don't
gosh,
understand.
I was afraid you were gonna ask me that. Let me pull something up really quick. Measure distance from the edge of pavement to that line. Okay. Here. Averages around 95 feet.
And the closest,
Yeah, but at the closest, where the edge of the boulevard entrance is, where the road is double wide, at the closest, it is, yeah, it's pretty close, 94.84 feet.
Nancy, do you want clarification on, he's going to use vague terms, typically larger diameter? Can you give a more definitive, not a vague, larger diameter?
Like a 3-inch caliper.
3 inch.
Yeah, not tiny little knee-high trees.
So we're in agreement, and the planning commission did an awesome job of getting that included in their thing. It sounds very open-ended to us, and, you know, we're not familiar with what that means to you guys. It may mean something way better than what we're expecting. It may mean something way less than what we're expecting. Is there a chance that we can get Mannerbrook board, a group of Mannerbrook board members to be a part of that process so that we can be involved and have suggestions and maybe help with that?
This is the landscape.
For the landscape.
Oh, absolutely. The planning commission mandated the landscape plan be developed for you. If you're not involved, then all is for naught, because you might get something that you don't want. You might get too heavy a buffer. You might get a buffer with big holes in it where your dining room window looks out. That's what we don't want to happen. So yes, in that 90-day window that they gave me to develop a landscape plan, I absolutely want the residents who are going to be impacted most by the project to be involved.
Awesome.
Now, clarify, Chris Berger and I, since we once were members of the master board, we cannot vote.
What?
We cannot vote on this. Okay? We haven't been able to, okay? But this I will say, if I wasn't on council, and I was living in the gardens, I would want to be there. Put my 2 cents down. No question about it.
And that's what we're asking here. We're asking to, and you're telling us that we have now been guaranteed a seat at the table to be part of that discussion, and part of that final answer. Is that a correct statement?
You probably be more involved than you want to be.
That's okay. But that goes a long way into easing our mind on how this is gonna happen. Again, we're kind of naive on some of this. I don't know what it means when you say you're gonna take care of it. We'd like to be a part of that. Being the Mannerbrook board, being a part of that is key. And that's a great step.
Same thing for you and your situation, Jeff.
Thank you,
It's just the way we operate.
I have I'm Mark Hill, and I live at 127 Mannerbrook. I don't know that I need a microphone.
We're not sure where it's.
It might be going somewhere. Thank you. What is the construction phase of this project, and how do you handle safety considerations?
I'll let Eric do that one also. Construction, Eric.
Safety considerations in terms of traffic.
In terms of the trucks going in and out, coming up Manor Brook? I don't know.
There are gonna be no trucks coming up Manor Brook because we don't have access to the work area via Manor Brook. The accesses have to be off of 306.
Okay. There appears that there'll be a lot of trucks. Will they ever get in the way of the Manor Brook entrance? Back up?
The trucks are gonna be, there is gonna be a lot of hauling out,
Right.
hauling out of material. We're excavating a wide floodplain, to a depth of about 3 feet, along that sinuous curve of the new stream. So yeah, there's gonna be trucks coming in empty, and there's trucks gonna be going out full. Will there ever be a time, when the sight line of coming out of Manor Brook, will be obstructed from traffic coming from the north? Likely, yes. However, we're requiring the contractor to provide traffic control, whether that utilizes a police presence during the peak hours, or they have, or we say if you have two construction entrances, we want you to come out at the north end of the project to give a longer sight line to the folks that are coming out of Manor Brook. That's a possibility as well. It's the contractor's responsibility to prepare a traffic control plan that's suitable to the building. I can't say at this point, like, absolutely a truck will be coming in here and out here, because that's really for the contractor to set up. He absolutely has an allowance in the plan for traffic control, both for the clearing and the excavation part of the project. Traffic control and cleaning. We also don't want mud tracked out on the streets. That is a prime concern. It's a state route. We can't have a lane of the state route be obstructed with a line of trucks, and we also don't want mud being tracked out onto the state route that causes a dangerous situation for the motorists.
And then duration? Is there a duration that you've figured yet?
It depends on the winning bidder, the contractor that's awarded, and what his constructive effort is. I see the duration, I see the excavation persisting for a couple of months at most. But that's a guess on my part right now, because they could come in with two crews and start at either end to meet in the middle, or they could start at one end with a big group of equipment and work south, or they could have a smaller crew that just takes longer. That's not my call to make. But I would say expect the digging to take a couple of months.
I have a question. I'm Valerie Seminaro. I live at Washington Manor Brook, and I live on the northwest corner of your blue outline. And I might not be articulate, but the silt line comes right towards my property. What comes into that silt line from beyond your drawing? From our property? Is it water? A silt? I don't know if it's a silt line. It's at the top left corner of the screen.
Yeah.
Is that a creek?
That's
that's a stream channel.
Okay, so there's water technically coming from our properties into that. Is that correct?
Correct. There is.
Okay. So all that tree line will be gone?
No. The end of that project is probably 300 or 400 yards from your house.
Okay.
And the trees, you won't be affected.
I won't see that. Okay.
They're not anywhere near.
If your sightlines are affected, well, that's input that we'll need to develop that landscape plan, the screening plan.
Okay, thank you.
Some of the water that comes in here comes from the pond of the farmhouse north, which is not on the screen. That's the pond that comes down through here.
The what? I'm sorry?
Some of the water that comes in this area comes from there's a pond north of there. That's where it comes down to.
Oh, all right, thanks.
Other questions or comments?
Is anybody's contract gonna have responsibility for this thing working?
converted.
Well, it won't be the
Yeah,
engineer.
that's everyone's responsibility.
But
Worst case scenario.
I'm talking about legally.
Is, yes, oh, yeah, the project's gonna be bonded.
And bonded, and it will say in the contract, this is the intent of the design, and it will last for 10 years, and it will do these things guaranteed, and if not, you're gonna be responsible for fixing it. Is that you? Is that the contractor? Who is it?
We typically have a 2-year warranty bond, on the construction of the project. As part of the bid documents for the contractor. So if something isn't right and they have to come back in and fix it or adjust grade or rearrange, then yeah, within 2 years, it's the contractor's responsibility to do that.
But if the flooding persists, whose responsibility is that?
It's the villages, MCTs.
So I guess one of my concerns would be that how do we determine if this flow south of the Manabrook culvert is appreciably increased as a result of this project? And if so, how does that get fixed? You just add restrictors to any of those culverts?
Adjust the grade control structures, the boulders and the brittle structures, yes, to slow the water down more.
All right, so you can assure the residents downstream of this project that they will not be adversely affected.
Correct. Yes, that's our goal. And if we can't, then worst case scenario is we put a restrictor on the upstream end of the pipe that we replace next year.
And do we have a date upon which this would be advertised for bids or bids due?
Council approved the clearing quote on Monday. I have to confirm with my contract administrator, but it's been on he's been asking me, can I advertise? I've had to tell him no, until we get the clearing quote settled. That council voted to approve the van clearing quote for the tree clearing for this project at Monday's council meeting. I imagine it's gonna be advertised by Friday.
Does council need to pass the resolution to advertise?
They've already done so.
And that previously.
We're ready.
What happens if they come in over bids? Over budget?
Did we rebid?
You just keep rebidding until you hit the 319 budget or whatever that
The 319
grant or whatever it was.
grant funding is 80-20 for the project. And we'll be exceeding the budget of the grant regardless. The village will pay a 20% share regardless. If we go over that grant amount, it becomes 100% village share.
So as part of the advertisement, you will have published the engineer's
The
estimate.
construction cost estimate. Correct.
Good. Thank you.
I was just wondering, because I know that, I think you're kind of assuming that Manabrook is gonna give you the phase 2 permission. If you don't get
I
that,
don't assume anything.
okay, because if you don't get that, this plan still stays,
Correct.
okay? And it's workable as is, forget phase 2.
Correct.
Okay. And then.
Yeah, when we calculated the flood volume that occurs on the east side of 306 and how much material needs to come out on the west side of 306 to compensate for that, we only looked at the north end.
Okay, so I'm hearing you say you do not need to do the phase 2 project, period.
Nope.
Or would you just say that? I'm sorry.
He's not assuming that it will be approved. Yeah, which is understandable.
Okay, and this is gonna work without, so you don't need to do phase 2. And then my other concern is.
I think it would be really helpful for residents downstream if we were allowed to do it, but we'll work within the constraints that we have, and we don't have permission to build this other end, so we're not.
Okay. And then my other concern is there was a dam project done at Lake Louise that was botched. And it was pulled. Okay, well, I don't want to jump into this and then the project be shut down and all that went through with that. Just a statement, I guess.
Does the Corps have to approve it?
Army Corps of Engineers, yes.
They do.
Yeah, they have.
Oh, wow, good.
Other comments?
Anything else on drainage and landscaping?
What?
Anything else on drainage and landscaping?
Anybody else?
I have a question. My name is Gene Seminaro. I just wanted to know what the noise level, what will change from 306 to the back of our properties? Has anybody ever calculated that?
You'll still
I have no idea, that's even a calculable number.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I can't provide any kind of insight on that.
So we had a conversation, Eric and Mayor Coons, when we were walking the field at one point. And in the list of, suggestions that we gave you, that was part of it. And in that, both Eric, you and Mayor Coons semi-agreed at that point that it wouldn't be bad to take a decibel level of noise prior to any construction. And then the attempt would be that we would not make it any worse than that. We're not looking to make it any better, but our attempt would be to make it not any worse than that. In our landscape plan, can we make that part of the conversation? I think I heard the planning commission sort of say they weren't all that interested in it, but that would be a suggestion that actually, Mayor, you and Eric, we had that conversation and we talked about it.
Sure, I mean, I'm open, I'm 100% open to it.
So when we're designing if we can take get a decibel reading prior
I would
to.
say we would need multiple readings.
Yep.
And they should be at the same day of the week and roughly the same time. So we can have a stronger correlation than just one reading where it's an exceptionally loud day on 306 or an exceptionally quiet day on 306. To compare.
Is that something that we can kind of be part of our landscaping discussion?
Sure.
And get the board in there to, within reason, we can accommodate the landscape. You hear noise.
Because my wife and I live in 221 on top of the hill, and we hear.
Yeah, and you can hear, and especially this time of year, you can hear from the other places, so the question is to not make it worse. That's the question. It's not, we're not looking to improve it, we know it's there, but we're trying to avoid it being worse. So if we can do that by, having something to go by and we can accommodate it in the landscaping screening, I think that's all that's necessary.
I'm sure there's some sort of sound technology we do test before and after.
So
Yeah, I'm not, to any other CT doesn't have a decibel meter of any sort. I don't think we do, I can ask.
Eric knows someone. Eric, do you know someone who will do it?
Do I know someone who'll do it?
Yes.
No. I've never been asked that before. I'm sure I can find somebody, but you're out of the depth of my knowledge there. I'm the wrong guy to ask about sound.
The key is to get the baseline done before the cutting starts, right? Do you agree?
Correct.
Useless afterwards.
Right.
I think some of the building commissioning firms like Brewer Garrett or Osborne Engineering do acoustical studies for buildings. I don't know if they have that expertise or not, but you probably have contacts there.
We'll get it figured out. Okay.
Yeah, that's a task that's gonna have to be performed by somebody other than myself, because I am not the guy to ask about that.
So we had one other issue that was brought up when Eric and Mayor Coons and a few of us, Manbrook board met, and the other one was the water well. So all of Manbrook, Whitetail, work off of wells that are on that property. And there happens to be a well that's not far from the end of this project. And there was somewhat of a concern of water quality. We don't anticipate that we're gonna have an issue with it and that this project won't affect it. But the comment was made, can we do the same thing with the water? Can we do a baseline study on the wells currently? And then if something should happen, we have something to go by, or we can acknowledge that, and again, I'm saying this without having any idea whether it will actually affect that or not. But there is a well that's probably no more than 75 feet from that far corner of that project.
Do you know what the depth of that well is? How deep are we talking?
I don't, Eric, and there's 2 or 3 wells on that property that feed the community.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that's
we
the
looked
closest
at a
one
couple
to
of well cases that they did the walkthrough in the woods.
it. Yeah, and I don't
In
know.
the area of the floodplain excavation, we're gonna be taking about 3 feet of overburden off. A well of any significant depth is, I would have a hard time seeing how a 3-foot excavation is gonna change the quality of the water in a well. Unless the well is exceedingly shallow.
Mr. Royer, are you still on the master board?
Yes, sir.
Isn't there a company that takes care of our wells?
Yes, sir.
I would imagine that they could be asked to take a look at the quality of the water before and after.
That's why this note is on this piece of paper.
It would just be a baseline to have it, and I can't imagine what would cause anything to do it, but because of, that's a livelihood for all of us. Let's at least have it noted. At least have it noted.
We are going to do about 25 water samples throughout the village. We're going to be hiring BioSolutions at $50 a sample. And what we want to look at is water, like where people have septic systems, where people have drinking water, where people have sewers, where water flows into a lake, water comes out of the lake. We'll be doing that this spring when the weather's better. And then that will be taken out to BioSolutions. It's going to cost us about $2,500. So we can look and say, okay, this water that goes into Lake Louise, that comes from Sunridge, where they have septics, that water, what kind of water comes into Lake Louise, and what kind of water goes out to Lake Louise and goes to Buffalo, what kind of water goes out of Buffalo. And the water, some people say the water's bad because there's too much salt on the roads by ODOT. So we'll have that done this spring. This can be something that goes along with that too.
The spring might be too late. If we're gonna
The
do it
spring's
before
too late.
Yeah.
I would advise if you've got a company that services your water system, it's a real easy thing, to open a well casing and get a sample on a baseline. I would advise doing that now.
Who do you use, Bob? Use BioSolutions.
I'm not sure, we don't use BioSolutions. But,
All right, we'll find somebody.
The gentleman who was working for Chagrin Falls, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
He's the manager now.
Can you
And they
document?
may already, if your water system is operated and maintained by a private company, they may already have that information. They're certainly looking at the quality that's discharged into the line. They may already have that information to know what's the water quality of each individual well that's coming in. That would be a responsible thing for them to already know, I would think.
The quality of the water is measured all the time. It's how, not sure what government entity, manages that, but.
Yeah, and we would be looking for not just, the drinkable part of it, the hardness, iron, pH levels, to see if anything's changed. So we want to know baseline of all those items in there, and then make sure that nothing's changing dramatically that would require, people to start getting equipment in their houses that we currently don't have.
Is that based on pre-treated?
What's that?
Is that pre-treated?
Pre-treated, yeah, but directly from the well. The other thing that would be good to know is, as he was suggesting, what are the depths of all these wells? And not just that one that's closest to the property, but I think there's at least 3 on the property.
We just got the fourth well.
And the fourth one's right by the plant, right?
I'm not sure where.
One was done just, or redone right by the plant.
Right.
So all of those, what is the depth of the well, the output of the well, how much water is coming out of the well per minute, gallons per minute, which they should have that flow also, and then all the different, hardness, pH, iron, whatever. Coliform is another whole thing, you have to test for that we don't really need to know.
These are likely parameters that are already known by whoever's operating your water, because you can't effectively treat that water unless you know what company it is you're treating for. So these are all fantastic ideas, and I would absolutely, if I was a resident, want to assure that the quality of the raw water coming in, pre-treatment, wasn't affected by this project or anything else for that matter. But those parameters are likely already known. I think just might be asking whoever operates and maintains the treatment of your system, likely already knows everything we're mentioning here.
I would agree.
Any other questions before I speak? All right, there's a lot of frustration in the room, and some of it from all sides. We would like to offer on a very tentative date on March the 9th, 10 a.m. to meet with the Management Board. We'll be meeting with Mark Porter, the Head of Public Utilities, and myself, to talk about some of the issues that came up tonight, so we're all on the same page.
10 a.m., we have people that look at our report, so.
You said it's 10.
That's 10. Okay, I do have some frustrations. Sunday night, January the 27th, 2019, many of you were here in this room. And we talked about this project. It was presented by Eric, presented by Kim Brewster. That was 37 months ago. I feel we're kind of getting ambushed at the 11th hour with all sorts of issues. And I know there's frustration, but I sent out the letter to you because I didn't want you waking up to the sound of chainsaws. That's what's going to be happening in another week or two. I don't like having an email sent out where you call me a liar. I don't like being told that I've been ignoring you. I spent Saturday morning here with you. So there's some frustration, both ways. But we can all work together and we can get this problem solved. So
You just need to do what you tell me you're gonna do, period. You've told me you're gonna do a lot of things and you have not done. So you got what you deserve, and you've now listened. You've ignored us and ignored us. You talk about that meeting all those months ago. We have been for every bit of 6 or 8 months trying to get you to sit down and listen to what we just told you here tonight. You ignored us. Whitetail ignored us. I just tell it like it is, and it's the truth. And I'm a big guy, just like you're a big guy, okay? But I'm telling you exactly what you did. Nothing I told you in there was a lie. Everything was exactly what you did. You need to do what you tell me you're gonna do. When you tell me you're gonna give me a landscape plan, do it. You didn't do it. The planning commission forced you to do it. You and Eric both told us some things. You didn't do it. The landscape or the planning commission forced you to do it. We're sitting here now because I forced you to have this conversation tonight. You weren't going to have this conversation the way we wanted this conversation. So do your job, and then we won't be as frustrated.
I called this meeting, sent out a letter to you. Thank you all for coming.